The Airbnb story. Okay. So the Airbnb story happened in Kendall. And it was this woman named Susan. And her last name was Polish. And the first thing she said to me in Wyoming, we came like Monday night. We didn't actually get there till like 7 o'clock or something. And then Tuesday morning, she drove us in. And the first thing she said to us was that she was taking care of her mother and her stepfather and that they were racists. So that seems like a little weird thing to say to like a black woman and her big white boyfriend. But we didn't make any big deal of it. We didn't think too much of it. And so we kind of, the first night, she seemed like she was hovering a lot. She kind of trying, and she was talking about kind of making us comfortable, but she was making us uncomfortable by trying so hard, seemingly, to make us comfortable.
Did this woman have positive reviews from other people that stayed there?
Well, she just started.
Aha! Surprise, surprise.
She just started.
It's her first B&B, and she is a...
Wasn't her first. It was her second, and the first one, like, got into thought it was dollars instead of pounds that she was charging, because she was charging, given what it was costing. I mean, these things are expensive. It was like 30 pounds a night.
It's about $50, right? $60.
50, 60 bucks, because the whole thing was a ripoff. I mean, the currency exchange, it was like $1.92 to buy a pound. So it was, as it turned out, what I was spending was close to 60 bucks for this thing. And then Airbnb has a service charge.
Of course they do.
So that's how they make their money. I really don't understand this Airbnb thing. But anyhow, her first review, like, who knows what it was. It was okay. But she's hovering. And then the very first morning that we're there, which is like Tuesday morning.
You spent the night there.
We spent the night there. Everything's seemingly cool, and we're talking to her, and I'm listening to her fucking sob story. Yeah, I mean, she's. It was like, I asked her some questions, and she's talking about her ex-husband, who was like the international, like, sales rep for Wellcome Glaxo stuff. They had like 2 kids together, and then he went off with one of his secretaries or something like that.
Yeah, I wonder why.
And she was like, and he never like supported his kids, and she let him do all that. And it was just this like horrible, like, sob story of this kind of abused woman. But she had this place, like, it was just outside of Kendall. The sign said she did massage, although I never saw her do any massage.
Did you ask?
Yeah, she said she did some clients, but not that many. But she had this big, it was a big space. And the bedroom was nice. Mm-hmm. We had our own bathroom. The first day, they have these kettles, these electric kettles. You press a button and the electric kettle goes on. And then they have because they have 220 electricity, it heats up really quick. But the first day, Wyoma, by mistake, took this kettle and put it on the stove. It kind of sucked, and it burnt rubber, but it didn't burn it didn't burn her grill, and so immediately I offered to buy another one of these things for her.
Did she take you up on it?
She did take me up on it. She found online this thing. She showed me. It was 30 pounds.
Fine. Perfect.
So I thought, what the fuck? So I gave her the 30 pounds, and she seemed to be fine.
Yeah. Problem solved.
Problem solved. So she kept saying about, oh, everybody here has a car. So we didn't have a car, but it wasn't that far into Kendall. So she seemed to be over solicitous. And then, so we went out Tuesday morning. She gave us a key. She was going to take us into town, but then she said there was somebody from social services was coming. Just as she was going to take us, this person comes up. So she goes off with this person. She'd given us a key, but she hadn't shown us how to use it. So we'd already screwed up one of her things, and she was there talking to this person. So neither of us could get this thing locked. The way you had to do it, you had to lift up the handle and twist it at the same time. I'd never seen anything like. But I didn't do any of that, and she was in the house. So we left it, she was there. We left it unlocked. And we walked into town. We come back Tuesday night at 7 p.m. or something, and she immediately shows us online, and we'd asked her if we could stay longer than the 3 days. We were going to stay Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights.
Okay.
So we asked her if we could stay longer because we still didn't have another place to stay, even though I knew some other people in Kendall. Hadn't really connected yet. So we get home Tuesday night. She's been looking on the internet, and she shows us this place. She says, oh, this place is great. And we see this place, this woman only has Tuesday night and Wednesday night free, this other person. So this seems a little weird to me. She's all hot to drive us there. This is 7 o'clock at night. She wants us to call this woman, and so it seemed like maybe she doesn't get it, but this isn't really helpful to
It
us.
doesn't sound like a very relaxing experience.
It wasn't such a relaxing experience. So I said, no thanks. This isn't going to help us.
Yeah.
And so we go to bed, and Wednesday morning, I get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, 4:45 in the morning. And our bedroom is separate, and the kitchen is supposedly the place we can be. So I quietly go into the kitchen and make myself a cup of tea. 10 minutes after I go in to the kitchen, she comes into the kitchen, and she says, is there a problem? Is there something wrong? And I say to her, no, I'm still on American time.
Yeah.
I thought I'd get up and maybe write some reflections in my notebook. And she says, I'm not used to this. And
Get used to it. You're Airbnb now.
right. So I don't say anything. I just say, well, I'll just sit at the kitchen table here, and so I do. I sit at the kitchen table for half an hour writing, and then I go back to bed.
Were you making much noise?
No noise at all.
Were you making coffee and all that stuff?
Well, I made tea.
Think you woke her up?
No, I think she was like up. I think she was like totally up. I mean, she was a pretty uptight person.
All right. So anyway,
So I go back to bed like, 6 o'clock or a couple of minutes before 6 o'clock. I'm sleeping like till 8:30. Wyoma's gone in the kitchen
Uh-oh.
and like had breakfast, because breakfast comes with it. It's a B&B. Well, Wyoma comes back into the bedroom where I'm still in the bedroom, and she says to me, she wants us to leave in half an hour.
What?
And so I go in the kitchen, and she says, well, I'm not used to, and you left the door open, and she's like making shit up, she wants to get us out of there, and I said, well, we already paid for this. And she says, I'll give you the 30 pounds back. And I said, it costs more than 30 pounds. And she said, no, I only get 30 pounds. And then I say, that's not enough. And she says, I'll call the police. Do you want me to call the police? My son's here. And
Sorry to laugh.
oh, right, I'm sure you're sorry. Right. You're sorry. Well, I was sorry. And so I didn't know what to do exactly. And so I asked Wyoma, and she said, are you kidding me? We'll get out of here. And so I took the 30 pounds, and by the time she said half an hour, at 10 o'clock, she's in the kitchen, like pacing, and she has this kind of big guy there.
Her son.
Well, it turns out it wasn't her son. It turns out it was her nephew or something like that. And he's going to drive us into town, and it's really awkward, and it really it sucks, really, basically. It's our first experience. It's like...
When you were in the car with him, was he like apologetic, like, my aunt's fucking crazy, sorry about that?
No, he was silent.
Oh.
It was like the longest 7 minutes we've ever spent.
So where'd you go after that?
So after that, I actually did have a very old friend named Joan, who we went to see. She was home. She offered us a space, but Wyoma's allergic to animals and dust and stuff. So we tried it one night, and it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. But she had a friend next door who I also knew, used to be a partner of hers, now is just a friend, and he offered us a space on the top floor, and that worked for 3 nights.
Nice.
So we got 3 nights there. That was great.
Now, did he threaten to call the police after 3 nights? Or?
No. He was cool.
We're going to incorporate this phone call into the video?
All right, we will. Phone calls.
Hello?
Hello, this is Chris.
Hello? Yeah, I'm videotaping with Neil right now, so I can't really talk.
Hello, Beth. We're making a great video.
What? I can't hear you.
We're doing the colonoscopy. We're doing a colonoscopy.
Okay. I did not get toilet paper. Okay, goodbye.
Toilet paper is important. Toilet paper is important. Now, if in case you're wondering, we did not use too much toilet paper any of the places we went.
Americans are
Because Americans are notoriously parsimonious with respect to toilet paper.
So the second guy didn't call the police on you. You didn't clog up the plumbing.
No, we didn't clog up the plumbing. We were totally cool. He was really sweet. And then I was going to stay. I used to own a building in this place.
Yeah.
And so this building, one of the reasons going up there was this building was I owned the building because my friend Don Burton was running an Alexander school, the Fellside Alexander School, and he, at a certain point, some years ago, 30 years ago or something like that, 30, yeah, probably, maybe even more, he wanted to buy that building, but he had no money. And I had some money because I had a flea market on Portobello Road. No way.
That's what you were selling.
No way. I was selling vintage American clothing.
Okay.
So I had some money. I invested in this building, and it went fine for about 25 years. And then we had a falling out because he was a big spender. So even though the building had doubled in value, he had borrowed money. I mean, he was a brilliant person, and he was incredibly creative and creative with spaces. He redid this space like 3 different times. Thousands of pounds he put into it.
But that was out of the equity of the apartment.
That was out of the equity of the apartment. So we had this great building which he lived in without paying rent. Nice for him. And it was okay for me because I was actually getting interest on the money I was lending him until he stopped paying me. But in any case, the issue was that in 1996, he died.
So that's a big issue for him.
It was a big issue because he was my age, and and it was not clear, to me at least, how he died.
Could have been foul play.
Well, it could have been autoplay, let us say. So,
Asphyxiation?
well, I'm going to tell you the story because I didn't know, because I'd heard 2 stories.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to the woman who was his girlfriend, and she told me that it was an accident, that he'd had like a stroke or a heart attack or something like that. And it seemed really credible that that was the case. But my friend Joan had told me way back when that he'd committed suicide.
Oh, that sucks.
So, but I didn't, they seemed equally credible to me. So one of my goals, a sort of sub-goal, I mean, the major goal was for me and Wyoming not to kill each other. And hopefully, since we'd been getting along, maybe get closer.
Yeah.
So that was the goal. But this building was still there, and it was actually owned. It turned out that when he died, some of the people who I knew took over the building and got some investors, and there was a whole trip happening. And I thought that I could actually stay at this building because it was intercession times. But it turns out that Jamie, who had really taken over the building, who I knew, Don had actually sold him part of the building, and I had agreed to have my share reduced because I felt a little guilty. Why did I feel guilty? Who the hell knows? But
I didn't know that was an emotion that you were capable of feeling.
well, I've gotten over it. But at the time, I felt this kind of guilt because I was getting interest on the building, truth be told. And I thought I was getting a building that was going up in value. I didn't know that he was actually bankrupt when he died. And one of the reasons why I thought he might not have killed himself was because he had insurance. He had life insurance. And the life insurance actually paid off. But it only paid off to pay the building's debts. So the building could then be sold to somebody else. And it was sold to somebody else. And they actually paid off the money that I had invested in it.
So if you would have still owned part of that building, you would have got a full payoff because of the insurance.
I did own part, but I owned part.
Oh, you only own part.
I only owned part, but I was happy to get out with my money. That's the money I gave to Tom Abate.
Oh, so
everything comes together.
Okay, yeah.
So that's the money I gave to Tom Abate, but that's another story that you'll have to...
Which is available on
herbieproman.com, but it's a sad story that to this day makes me cry. But in any case, what I found out was that the fact that the insurance pays, at the time, 1996, Kendall was a small town, and it has a small town police force, and it was still a time that had this kind of gentleman's agreement that it turns out that what happened was that it was a Thursday, February 1996. I think it was February 8th, 1996. And there was a huge snowstorm. It was on a Thursday. And he actually walked out of this building, and the last person to talk to him alive was the cleaner. And the cleaner was totally freaked out by the conversation because he seemed crazy. She was scared when he left.
The guy that was going to supposedly kill himself seemed crazy.
Yes, to her.
Interesting.
Was reported to me. And this wasn't the first time I'd heard the story about the cleaner. This was Jamie now talking. Joan had said the same thing. So, this now seemed to me more understandable, and I hadn't understood. I had thought that he had gone hiking and maybe had gotten caught in a storm or something like that, but he actually walked out of a safe, warm place into the hills above to Scout Scar is where his body was actually found.
What was the method of his death?
Who knows? He was found 2 days later.
I mean, was it a stab wound? Was it
No.
Well, how did he die? Cause of death?
I think the coroner said he must have had a heart attack or a stroke or an accident or, it's like, how does someone die when you find them frozen and there's no gunshot wound? He didn't jump off. No, there was no gun. There was some alcohol. There were some sleeping pills, but there were sleeping pills. Obviously, he hadn't taken them.
Oh, okay.
So, did he have more? Who knows? Did he drink some of the alcohol? Probably he did. I think it was an empty bottle, but who knows? Maybe he poured it out. So the point being, there was enough uncertainty, and the police reported it as an accident, but I found out later that someone else I knew the policeman who dragged him, because this was 2 days later, and this is a frozen body that had to be dragged down. There was no way to drive up there. So he had to be dragged down, and evidently the policeman who did the dragging said to Joff, who I knew, that it all did not seem exactly kosher. So, but there was no definitive evidence, and the coroner did rule it to be an accident. But what I found out is, if he hadn't ruled it to be an accident, there's a shitload of paperwork. They would have had to done an autopsy. And the police...
They hate paperwork.
They hate paperwork. So everybody... And not to mention the shame it would cause to the next of kin. And... there was a genteel kind of arrangement, and evidently in 1996, I think the insurance companies today would be much harder charging than they were back then.
So they wouldn't have paid now, you think?
That's what I think, but I don't really know. I mean, that insurance company has probably been taken over by some multinational insurance company, probably owned by Americans. Mitt Romney, yeah, probably owned by Mitt the shit.
So let's get beyond this.
Okay, so we can get beyond this. So Jamie said something good, because he was a revered figure, Dawn. And so everybody was shocked and heartbroken, and they had all kinds of memorials for him. And basically, the story was allowed to happen that he had died by accident. And the people who knew more than that, Jamie had a perfect example. He said there's an old African proverb that don't speak ill of the person until the mound has flattened. Because the way they buried people in Africa, evidently, or at least in some cultures in Africa, is they made a burial mound.
Yeah.
And so it took some years for that mound to level out. So the African proverb is, until the mound, do not speak evil of a dead person until the mound is flat. So that was interesting to me, and it was, in some ways, it was worth the trip, because never know for sure, but what I realized was how lucky I was to get my money out at the time. How lucky Tom Abate was.
He was lucky.
He was lucky.
This is all about him.
This is all about me.
So
and Mitt.
So, okay, after all this happened, you're in England.
Uh-huh.
What else happened? What else did you do?
So then, after like 3 days, 4 days with Joan and Bob's, and they were very sweet to us. She drove us because it's really hard to get around by bus there, but she had a car. And she offered to take us to Grasmere and Windermere. And so we drove around one day to the lake. And there's a beautiful 13th century castle in Kendal. And the river is along there. So we had like and then I couldn't stay because it turns out this building is again in trouble, and there's been all kinds of legal maneuvers. And so Jamie, who would have probably let me stay there, he had to declare the building closed. So without risking, someone seeing that I'm there, but he did connect me to Zohar. Who was Zohar means star or light. It's Hebrew.
So you connected to some spiritual leader named Zohar.
And it wasn't a spiritual leader. It's just an Israeli woman who now has British citizenship, who actually rented out, not Airbnb, but rented out a room to people who would come to the Alexander School. So Jamie knew that she had rented that room. And she was willing to rent the room to Wyoma and I. And she didn't have any animals. So we spent 4 nights there, and it was perfect.
Awesome.
And she was very sweet. And not only that, she wanted to look up somebody in Boston, so instead of actually taking money from us, she said, listen, I'll come and visit you and you can put me up. And that was like so fantastic.
Wait.
It was like incredible.
I know where both of you guys live. Either one of you could put anyone up.
Yeah, I explained to her what I have.
Okay.
So it's, I got an air mattress. She can stay in the living room. It's not the Ritz, but...
No, I know. I'm just saying it's a studio apartment.
And her place wasn't the Ritz either, but it was great. It was perfect. It all worked out.
Good.
So, but then Wyoma wanted to visit London, and I had friends who I wanted to see in London.
Okay.
So I am desperate because we called up hostels in London, and even in hostels, like the cheapest in a hostel is like £20 per person. There was only one hostel like that, and they went up to, for a hostel,
Oh my God.
£150 a night.
Hostels were for like poor traveling students and teens.
That's what they used to be for. So that really, and I'm like on tenterhooks, because I only brought a certain amount of money, and it's like it was freaky, because I brought some money, but I tried to change some money in Manchester, and because some of the money that I got from the damn bank had like marks on it for some reason or other. One of the places we spent 2 nights with a friend of hers, which was great. But I tried to change some money there, and they wouldn't change my money.
Yeah, some of the banks used to put lots of marks on the dollar bills and stuff.
So these were marked up, and they wouldn't cash them. And it was kind of freaky, and we still had to go to London, and like I didn't know how I was going to do it. So I started calling up these Alexander teachers, people who I hadn't seen for 40 years.
Holy shit.
And so like I was calling these people, and it was actually very nice.
Yeah, 'cause you had a reason to call them.
I had a reason to call them. A couple of them really wanted to see me, really remembered me fondly. You won't believe this, but they did. And then I called Karen Wentworth, who 40 years ago we ran a course together. Her family owned an island off of Maine, and we ran a course together on this island. And the course was okay, but we really didn't see each other after that. Turns out she now runs an Alexander training school, and when I called her and said, "Do you remember me?" because I haven't spoken to her in like 40 years, she said, "Of course I remember you, Neil." And she offered us a space, and when I said we're happy to pay, she said, "Don't be silly."
That's nice.
So, but we stayed in a loft, and the last day we were in Kendall, I twisted my ankle. So, and the first night when we got there, my ankle really hurt, and I thought, oh God, this is going to be another disaster, because the ladder to this was a loft bed. And it was a ladder that seemed a little shaky. And I have never been so scared in my whole damn fucking life. But thank God I didn't fall down. Wyoma didn't fall down. We got used to the ladder. My ankle got better. Karen was a great hostess. Wyoma met the person, the DJ who she did a single with, who used her voice. Oh. And I met one of the people who really wanted to see me. She came over the first day when I couldn't walk. And then I saw my really old friend, Sylvie, who has been, we were partners for 3 years, and then she made a wise decision to be with somebody else and have 2 kids. But she was really sweet about it, and so we wound up, after some awkward couple of years, we actually have been friends now for 30 years. And she'd had some health setbacks, but she was we saw her at Camden Lock, and she was a wonderful human being. You know, it was like reconnecting with, I remembered why I would have married her. And she had dealt with her health crises with great courage and from a really centered place. And it seems like she's in a better place now. And Wyoma met her, and she was an inspiring human being, just like she always was. And then I saw the people who I had introduced 40 years ago. We had, on this one Saturday, like a couple of days before we left, on the 16th of August, we saw Sylvie, and she took us we met her in Camden Lock and walked around there. They have a market there. I used to have a market stall there too. So we walked around there. It was kind of fun. And then we went to Hampstead Heath, and that was really fun. And then Wyoma and I walked around, and then we had dinner with my friends Mark and Luce, who I had introduced 40 years ago, and they've had 3 kids. And
those kids exist because of you.
Because of me. And their daughter has like a song. Their daughter is a musician, Lulu and the Lampshades. And they've done this song called the Cup Song, which we have to look up and link. You must link to it. because it is so cool. And it got 5 million hits. And not only that, it got 5 million hits. And then, because it was so cool, she got asked to be in a movie with that song and evidently made a wounding, like I made at Portobello Road, on the strength of that. And now has cut a CD, and her band are doing something. So it was kind of cool, and it was like all really fun. And I have stayed with Mark and Luce pretty much every time I've gone for the last 40 years. But I couldn't this time, because the same day we landed in London, they landed in Connecticut. They came back a couple of days earlier. They came back on the 13th or 14th.
Are these the people that own the fire and water?
Yes, Lead and Light.
Lead and Light. Okay, so you saw them in England, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Because they got back earlier than, but they came back with some friends, so their house was full, so we couldn't stay there. But it turned out that was probably a good thing, because they have a cat. And that night, by the end of the night, Wyoma was congested, and we had to leave a little bit early. But it was really fun, because everybody wanted to hear the story about how I introduced Mark and Luce, and it was just all really sweet. And their old friend Amparo, who is also a really good friend of mine, came, and it was just like old times for that night, and it was great. It was just a lot of fun. And Wyoma got to meet them, so it was really great. It was, so in some ways it it was what needed to happen for the trip. And since we had a place to stay, it all worked out good.
Awesome. Then you flew back.
Then we flew back, and that was another huge hassle with the TSA, and we had to clear customs, and they made us clear customs twice. And when we cleared customs the second time, there was these people who were coming, and they had a baby. And this baby, for 45 straight minutes, was screaming in my ear, because they were right behind us. And these people were doing everything they could to try and calm the baby, but the baby wouldn't calm. Inconsolable. And finally, we're right up to where you get called, go there.
Yeah.
And I just I was making faces at the baby, nothing worked. So finally I had this inspiration.
Yeah.
And I have my keys.
Yeah.
See these keys?
Yeah.
Well, I have this on my keys. And I went, and that's exactly what happened. The whole room froze. And the guy at the end of the room, you could see some guy took a gun out of his holster. And four people came up to me, and one of them grabs me, and they start, and for the next 2 fucking hours, I was showing my passport and explaining, and it was so unpleasant.
Did the baby stop crying?
The baby stopped crying for about a minute and a half. And then they went through customs, but then I spent 2 hours with the TSA.
Did they were they asking you, why'd you blow the whistle, shit like that?
Why you blow the whistle? Were you trying to disrupt things? Did you think this was funny? Are you a terrorist?
They actually asked you that?
That's the first thing they asked me.
If you're a terrorist, you wouldn't say you were a terrorist, right?
That's what I told them. They didn't seem to find that very soothing.
You could have got shot.
I almost did get shot.
Would have made a hell of a punctuation.
Would have made a great video. I could have been buried next to Don Burton.
Don Burton?
Don Burton.
Who the hell's Don?
The African proverb. Till the mound goes flat.
Okay. You give me beer next to Joan Rivers.
Next to Joan Rivers and Robin Williams.
Yeah, we'll have all three of you together.
All three of us together.
Yeah. That's great. Well, you sounds like you had a pretty eventful trip.
It was very eventful.
And you're going to show me pictures, I'm sure, right?
Wyominga's got lots of pictures.
All right. Well, I'm glad you guys had a good time. And interesting
A
time.
good time is not the apropos word.
Strong word.
It's a strong word. May you live in interesting times. That would be more like it. It was an interesting time. And I was so glad to get back to my little apartment.
Your little routine.
And my little routine.
So when's the next trip?
There is never going to be another trip.
No more cross-country trips? No more trips to London?
New York we might go to.
Well, so is this an endorsement of flying to London for pleasure, or is this...
Yuck! London is the worst place to go.
Why is that?
It is so expensive. Everything is double. It's like I took Sylvie and Wyoming. Wyoming just had coffee and like a little hoodsy type soy ice cream, and Sylvie and I had lunch in this vegan place, and it was like $60.
Oh my God.
It was, and that was that was reasonable for there. I mean, and to travel around for a day for the two of us was like, just the London subways.
Yeah.
You get a day pass.
Yeah.
It was like $40. And the food was like, it was we bought like a roasted chicken. It was like $20.
20 pounds or 20 bucks?
$20.
So it was like 10 pounds.
11 pounds.
20 bucks is expensive for a chicken.
For a chicken, a small chicken.
Hannaford for $8 and get a chicken roasted. 20 bucks.
$20. And what, it was, everything was like, and was like, everything was expensive. But after a while, I was just happy to spend the money, because fortunately, we weren't paying for accommodations, which is the most expensive part of the whole thing.
So think of it like that. You saved, so it all worked out.
It all worked out.
Good.
I was happy to spend the money. I bought extra stuff. I left extra money, so that hopefully if I ever do have to go back there again, that people would say yes again.
I think if you ever go back again, just for fun, you should call that first woman and ask her if she has anyone. That would be an end.
I'm going to give you the number.
That would be awesome.
You can make the call for me. And we had a whole saga because with Airbnb,
Yeah.
they write a review of you and you write a review of them.
How'd that go? Did she write a review of you?
She wrote a review of us.
I can see it online.
No, because we had a long interaction with them about racism and taking the review down, and it turned out that Airbnb gave Wyoma a $200 gift certificate for what reason we don't quite understand.
They don't want to be labeled as racist.
I guess. So it kind of all worked out.
So, did you read the review she left?
Yes.
What did it say?
It said, I can show it to you.
I thought you said it wasn't up there anymore.
It's not up there
Well,
anymore.
how do you have it then?
Because Wyoma sent it to me.
Oh, via email or something?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, awesome. All right. So, in closing.
In closing, I take a deep breath. Oh.